Yeah. Class. Hello. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So, any questions from the previous class? So, before I begin today's experiment. Did I send the assignment questions of the permeability? Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Did you receive the assignment questions of the permeability experiment
Yes, sir.
and handouts also? Okay. So I guess I did not share the recorded lecture.
Sir.
Okay. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah. Yeah. Please tell me. Yes, please. Any questions of the previous class? Seems everybody is sleeping.
No, sir.
So tired of all morning lectures or what? Okay. So let me start today's experiment. So this is a very simple one and very quick test. So today let us cover the experiment number 10, that is how to determine the unconfined compression test. So this test is covered by IS 2720 part 10 1985. So the basic purpose or the aim of this test is to determine the strength of a soil. So till now we were discussing about how to determine the permeability characteristics of a soil. That part we have covered in the previous lecture. Now today let us cover the another topic, that is how to determine the strength of a soil sample. Now here the strength is determined by resorting to unconfined compressive strength test. So in short it is also called as a UCS, typically unconfined compressive strength. So for example, if you take any soil sample, say this is the natural ground. If you take any point A below the ground surface, on it the different kind of stresses act: axial stresses, normal stresses, shear stresses, so on and so forth. Say so this is the typical condition. So this is a natural ground. Normally we excavate for the purpose of the foundation, and on top of the ground, so we construct a foundation, and P represents the load of a superstructure. Suppose if you take any small element of a soil sample at a depth say Z. So on this soil element, the stresses act. These stresses include normal stresses, shear stresses, and the combination of various other stresses. So this part has been very well covered in your strength of materials and engineering mechanics and so on and so forth. So I don't need to reiterate again the same aspect. So but I can say that if you take any small element at a depth, at any depth, so at any depth of the soil sample, so this is soil sample, so then the different stresses will act on the soil element include so the horizontal stresses, the vertical stress, and the shear stress. So these three, if the sample is in dry state, the vertical stresses, horizontal stresses, and shear stresses will act on the soil sample. Suppose if the sample is fully saturated or partially saturated, in addition to these stresses, even pore water pressure also acts on the soil sample. So that is represented with UW. So but when I say acting of horizontal stresses and vertical stresses, here the magnitude of the horizontal and vertical stresses may remain same magnitude or might different in magnitude. Of course, on the element, there may be another possible cases where the element may purely be subjected to only shear stresses, only axial stress, and only lateral stress. These are the possible combinations. Now, when I talk about the unconfined compressive strength, this is one of such combination. In this combination, there is a word called as a unconfined. Here, unconfined means there is no confining stress in the lateral direction. That is, sigma h is 0. It is in geotechnical engineering typically represented as sigma V as sigma 1. That is called as a major principal stress, while sigma h is designated as sigma 3, that is minor principal stress. Sigma 1 is major principal stress, sigma 3 is minor principal stress. Now, as I told, the combination of the stresses, suppose just imagine a condition where the sigma 3 is 0, that is no lateral stresses are acting on the soil sample, but which is rare, because if you take any soil sample from the ground, so it is obvious that on this soil sample, so there is a vertical stress and there is a lateral stress. But here we are assuming that the lateral stresses are 0. Sigma 3 is 0. Now if only sigma 1, that is axial stress, acts on the soil sample, how much is the resistance offered by that particular soil sample? So that is what is called as a unconfined compressive strength. Unconfined compressive strength. I hope it is clear to you all. So I will repeat again.
Sir, one second.
Yeah. So I will repeat again. If you take any small soil element at any depth z from the ground surface, there acts different kind of stresses which include vertical, that is sigma v, horizontal or lateral, that is sigma h, shear stresses, that is tau, and if there is a water in the within the soil sample, that is represented called as a pore water pressure as uw. Now today we will try to mimic one of such stress condition where the lateral stress is 0 and there is no shear stress. Of course, there is no pore water pressure also, but only there exists axial stress. If only axial stress is applied on the soil sample, what is the resistance offered by that particular soil sample? That is called as a unconfined compressive strength. Now, on what kind of the soil sample the test shall be conducted? See, just imagine I have given you two variety of the soil samples. One is sand, next is clay. Now, as you know, as I told in the previous class also, sand is passive to water. It won't react. Neither it won't react nor it won't hold any amount of a water. So therefore, even after adding the water to the sand sample, we can't able to make a soil sample as shown in this picture. For example, you look at this soil sample. So this soil sample is prepared by compaction. Now, if you take a pure sand, we by no means able to prepare this kind of the soil sample, meaning thereby the sandy soil sample cannot withstand themselves. But the same can be done with the in case of the clayey soil. The clayey soils can able to withstand themselves when they are compacted by adding the water. So this is the basic characteristic of a clayey soil. While not able to withstand is again a basic characteristics of a sandy soil. So therefore, this test is valid only for cohesive soils. It's not valid for non-cohesive soils like a sand. So this is the fundamentals of the uh, unconfined compression. Now, how do you define, as I told, unconfined compressive strength is annotated as UCS. So UCS is defined as the ratio of failure load to the cross-sectional area of the soil sample. So as I showed in the previous slide, we are going to apply only the major principal stress, that is sigma 1, and sigma 3 is kept constant. As you are increasing the sigma 1, I know the diameter of the soil sample, therefore I can able to calculate the cross sectional area. If I divide the load by the cross sectional area, what I will get is unconfined compressive strength. Unconfined compressive strength. So the test is essentially undrained test. Undrained means during the test we won't allow water to dissipate from the soil sample. So this is called as a undrained. No water is allowed to expel out from the soil sample. So here in case of the UCS, we will prepare a soil sample preferably of clay and maybe mix of clay, sand and silt, no problem. But the sample has to withstand itself when it is compacted. So that is the condition. So here a sample of 38 millimeter diameter and 76 millimeter height is prepared, and the same sample is subjected to some kind of the vertical stress or the axial stress until the soil sample fails. So this is the final stress at which the soil sample fails is called as a maximum compressive strength. Maximum compressive strength. Here there is no confining stress. So there is no confining stress means the sigma 3 is 0. The sigma 3 is 0. Now here we are using two variety of terminology. One is major principal stress, next is minor principal stress. When you talk about the major and minor principal stress, using these stresses, we can able to develop or draw the circle called as a Mohr circle. So this is Mohr circle. So for Mohr circle, we need two variety of the stresses. The x-axis is a normal stress and the y-axis is shear stress. Now on the x-axis, normal stress is there. So this normal stress is nothing but the major and minor principal stresses. Now in case of the UCS, we are increasing only the major principal stress value, that is sigma 1, by keeping the sigma 3 constant or 0, not constant, 0. Now when sigma 3 is 0, as per the Mohr circle, so it is the circle must pass through the horizon. So sigma 3 is 0 and sigma 1 is nothing but the maximum compressive strength that we have applied during the testing condition. So therefore, this maximum strength, which is nothing but sigma 1, can also be designated as QU, that is called as a unconfined compressive strength. Unconfined compressive strength. Now, the difference between sigma 1 and sigma 3 will become the diameter of the Mohr circle. The diameter of the Mohr circle. While the radius of the Mohr circle is nothing but the cohesion. The cohesion. So when you conduct any UCS test, we will get only one single circle because the sigma 3 values are 0. So only exists is sigma 1. So therefore, we always get only one single Mohr circle. There are not too many or no two Mohr circles. Since there is only one Mohr circle, if you draw a tangent line in the horizontal direction, so the vertical ordinate represents the cohesion of the soil offered during the testing. And since it is horizontal, the angle of internal friction is 0. That is called as a pi is 0. Of course, it is a bit difficult to understand at this point of time because these chapters have not been covered in your soil mechanics. But this is the fact. So when that chapter is covered, we can able to understand in a much better way. So in case of the unconfined compressive strength, so there is a single Mohr circle and this horizontal line is called as a failure envelope. Now pi is equal to 0 means the slope of this horizontal line. Since the line is in horizontal, the slope is 0. The slope is 0. So here the slope as well as the ordinate represents the soil properties. Represents soil properties. Now what are those soil properties? The ordinate Cu is called as a cohesion of the soil sample. And the slope of this horizontal line, here it is 0, but if it is inclined, that is called as a pi greater than 0. And this pi represents the angle of internal friction of a soil. So this C and pi are called as a shear strength parameters of a soil. C and pi are called as a shear strength parameters of a soil. Now, as I told, the basic aim of unconfined compressive strength is to determine the shear strength parameters of a soil. Those are C and pi. Now let us try to understand how to determine the C value and pi value. But of course, the pi value is 0, so we don't need to bother about the pi. We have to determine only the Cu value. So the unconfined compressive strength, which is nothing but sigma 1, or another way it is designated as Qu, is defined as the compressive stress at which an unconfined cylindrical specimen of soil will fail in a simple compression test. In a simple compression test. So this is the stress strain diagram. When you try to compress this soil sample, so we can develop a stress strain relationship. So that is stress versus strain. Then you'll get this kind of a stress strain graph. Now from this graph, I can determine the maximum stress, maximum compressive strength. So this maximum compressive strength is nothing but your sigma 1. And what about the sigma 3? The sigma 3 is 0. The sigma 3 is 0 and sigma 1 is obtained from here. So therefore, I can able to develop Mohr circle by knowing the sigma 1 value as sigma 3 is 0. So the difference between sigma 1 and sigma 3 is nothing but the diameter of the Mohr circle. And this is the analytical relationship. The unconfined compressive strength is defined as load upon the cross-sectional area. However, one important thing is that when the sample is axially loaded, the height of the sample gets decreased. Height of the sample gets decreased. But conversely, the diameter of the sample gets increased because the volume has to be remain same. So mathematically, the volume has to be remain same. So therefore, the decrease in height in vertical direction is compensated by volumetric deformation in the lateral directions. In the lateral direction. That means as the axial strain is increasing, the cross-sectional area of the sample is not remained same. The cross-sectional area of the sample is not remained same. So how to determine the change in cross-sectional area? So that can be determined using this equation. The corrected area AC is nothing but A naught, that is initial area, divided by 1 minus E. E is nothing but strain. Strain is defined as the deformation divided by the initial length of the soil sample. Deformation divided by initial length of the soil sample. So delta L is change in length, L naught is initial length of the soil sample. So now I know the corrected area, I know the how much amount of load applied, divide P divided by AC will give you the unconfined compressive strength. So in fact, the QE can be determined at the peak. So this is also relationship. Normally, the unconfined compressive strength test is conducted on a fully saturated soil sample with no drainage is allowed. So when sample is fully saturated, so it is obvious that its angle of internal friction becomes zero. The pi becomes zero. When pi is zero, so in this graph you can see the pi is zero. Pi is zero. So that means the sample is fully saturated. And whatever the ordinate is nothing but Cu. Now I know this is Qu. This is Qu. From 0 to horizon to sigma 1, this is Qu. And this is diameter of the Mohr circle. And how to determine the Cu analytically, which is nothing but from this diagram Qu by 2, half of the Qu, the same thing. But to determine the shear strength of a soil, we use another equation that is called as a Coulomb's equation. So this I will discuss in the next class. So this Coulomb's equation is nothing but tau F is equals to C plus sigma tan pi. Here tau F is nothing but shear strength of a soil sample. C is nothing but cohesion. Sigma is nothing but the normal stress applied on the soil sample. And pi is nothing but the angle of internal friction. Pi is this one and C is this one. C is this one. Now try to understand. Suppose if I make this horizontal line to some inclined line, that means that particular soil possesses the cohesion as well as the angle of internal friction, C value and pi value. C value as well as pi value. For example, if I draw, say this is another graph here. So this is nothing but pi and this is nothing but C value. C and pi. So this is the mathematical proportion postulated by the Coulomb. That's why it is called as a Coulomb's equation. This is also called as a constitutive equation. Constitutive equation. This equation is proposed by Coulomb's equation. This is also nothing but your y is equal to mx plus c. Y is equal to mx plus c, where y is the ordinate, mx plus c, m is intercept. Sorry, m is slope and c is intercept. C is intercept. So the primary purpose of UCS test is to determine the unconfined compressive strength, which is then used to calculate the unconsolidated undrained shear strength of the clay material. From the UCS test, we will determine the shear strength of the soil. So the shear strength means the shear strength in the form of a cohesion or in the form of a angle of internal friction. In addition, in this test method, the maximum load attained for unit area or the load for unit area at 15% axial strain, whichever occurs first during the performance. So this is called some kind of interpretation. Interpretation means if you don't get well defined stress strain relationship, then we will try to take the maximum stress corresponding to 15% of axial strain. That's what is the meaning of this statement. So this is some application of the unconfined compressive strength. Based on the unconfined compressive strength value, we can also classify the soil sample. Suppose if the UCS is less than 0.25 kg per centimeter square, then that particular soil sample can be classified as very soft. If it is between 0.25 to 0.5, soft, 0.5 to 1, firm, 1 to 2, stiff, 2 to 4, very stiff, and greater than 4, hard. So the UCS can also be used to classify the soil sample. So this is one of the implication of the UCS. Now let us come to the application part. The UCS test is used to determine the shear strength parameters. These shear strength parameters are further used to calculate the load bearing capacity of the soil sample. So the load bearing capacity of the soil sample for the construction of the foundations or for the construction of the dams or any other geotechnical structure. And this is also used to determine the undrained shear strength of a clay, which is commonly determined by the unconfined compressive strength. Again, I repeat, undrained means so we are not allowing the water to drain out from the soil sample. So usually the UCS use the least possible strength of a soil sample. So usually UCS will give you least possible compressive strength of a soil sample. So that's why UCS is conducted. But this test may not be always reliable. So here from the UCS test, we will try to determine the undrained shear strength, that is SU. So from this, we will determine the undrained coefficient, which is nothing but 2 times of QU. QU is nothing but the sigma 1, that is maximum compressive strength. So these are some accessories which are required for conducting the UCS test. So this is UCS mission, unconfined compressive strength testing mission. So this is the schematic or the cross section showing the different parts of it. So this is the soil sample and these are the plungers, top plunger and bottom plunger. So this is LVDT, which is used to measure the deformation rate, and these are the accessories for measuring the for preparing the soil sample. Now, as you can see, this is the soil sample. So this is cylindrical in shape. I showed you the minimum diameter is 38 millimeter and minimum height is 76 millimeter. In fact, the UCS test can be conducted on a variety of the soil cylindrical samples ranging from 38, 50, 100 and so on and so forth. But the minimum diameter is 38 millimeter and minimum height is 76 millimeter. So lesser than this one, we can't able to conduct any test. So first in UCS, one of the important step is how to prepare the soil sample. So as I told you, so UCS test can be conducted only on clay type of the soil samples because the sample has to withstand for testing purpose. So we can't do with the sand sample because it is pulverized and the sand sample is pourable. So what you do is first you take the soil sample, clay soil sample, sieve it, take the desired weight and mix it with the water. So then mixing, then the mixed soil sample is compacted within the mold. So this is the mold. So the internal diameter of this mold is approximately 38 millimeter and height of this mold is 76 millimeter. So this mold, so this is hollow. So this is a hollow mold. So therefore, in order to plug the bottom, we have a one bottom plunger. This is bottom plug and this is the top plug. But within this mold, we need to compact the soil sample from the top. So then how do you compact it? We need a compactor. So this is the compactor. What you do is this soil sample, which is mixed with the water, is placed within the mold, and with the help of the rammer, so we will compact the soil sample until we are achieving the desired density and the water content. So this is the cross section of this mold, cross-sectional geometry of this mold. As you can see, so this mold can be split into two halves, because once the soil sample is compacted, we need to retrieve the soil sample by splitting the mold. So as you can see, this is arrangement of the screws. So remove the screws and make it 2 halves and grab the soil sample. So as you can see, so this is the mold. So after the sample has been compacted, so the excess soil sample is trimmed from the top. From the bottom, it's not required because at the bottom the plunger is already inserted, so you don't need to trim it. So from the top, you need to trim the soil sample. Once it is trimmed out, remove the bolts and recover the soil sample. So this is the compacted soil sample. This is final compacted soil sample. So this is the mold, and this is the final compacted soil sample. So this soil sample is compacted to the internal geometry of this mold, which is approximately equal to 38 millimeter diameter and 76 millimeter height. So once the soil sample is ready, then so we have to conduct the UCS test on the soil sample. So first we have extracted the soil sample, so then kept inside the assembly of UCS test. So from this soil sample, we can also do few things. So since this is prepared for a particular geometry, one can able to measure the diameter and height of the soil sample. So measure the initial length and diameter of the specimen. Also determine the weight of the specimen. Now we know how much amount of the soil sample has taken in dry form, and we know how much amount of water has been added. So therefore, so the weight and water content can be used to determine the density. Density is nothing but mass upon volume. So we record the mass of the soil sample and calculate the volume based on the measured the diameter and length of the soil sample. So mass upon volume will give you the density, that is bulk density. Suppose if you further measure the moisture content of the soil sample, then the dry density of the same sample can be calculated. Your dry density is nothing but gamma D is nothing but gamma by 1 plus water content. Gamma is nothing but mass upon volume. Gamma is bulk density.
Sir,
And gamma
but
D
you
is
told that this UCS is it means unconfined compression test is only for saturated soil.
yeah, only for saturated soil.
Sir, but here we are determining it for optimum moisture content. Now we don't know whether it is saturated or not.
No, that is true. See, once the soil sample is compacted at gamma D and OMC, this is further saturated by applying the vacuum. Saturation is a different procedure. Saturation is a different procedure. The saturation is done after the sample is prepared. Okay, the saturation means we can't add the water equivalent to the weight of the soil sample. Then that becomes a slurry. It won't become a saturated. It will become a slurry. Saturation means.
Sir, but here we are not saturating in neither by vacuum also.
That is up to you. That is up to you. Usually UCS test will be conducted on a fully saturated soil sample. Usually all UCS tests will be conducted on a fully saturated soil sample. Sample is first prepared at gamma D max and OMC. Then it is kept for a fully saturation. Then on the saturated soil sample, so the UCS test is conducted. So of course, so without saturation also you can conduct the test. There is no harm. You can conduct after saturating the sample or even without saturation.
Okay.
Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So then place the specimen in the compression apparatus. This is the compression apparatus. So this compression apparatus is connected with the three things. First is this is the loading frame. This is the loading frame where it measures the amount of the load applied corresponding to an applied deformation. Then this is the dial gauge or LVDT. So this measures how much is the deformation. So when you conduct the test, I will get the amount of the load applied against the applied strain. Usually all strength testing tests are strain based. They are not a stress based. Meaning thereby we apply the amount of the strain. For example, we can apply 1 millimeter for a minute or 0.5 millimeter for a minute or 2 millimeter for a minute. We never conduct any test by saying that I have applied 10 kilopascals per minute or 20 kilopascals per minute. That never happens. We always apply strain, not a stress. That's why all strength tests are strain based, not a stress based. So fix the graph paper and pencil. This is for in case of LVDT. Then apply compressive load till the sample fails or 20% strain occurs. So normally what happens is if the soil sample is fully saturated, usually we can't able to experience a well-defined failure plane. In those circumstances, so in order to have a fair understanding, we apply 20% of the strains. Since we can able to calculate because we know how much is the strain rate and we know the time, so we can calculate how much amount of percentage of the strain applied. Then accordingly, so based on the calculations, when you are reaching the 20% strain, you can stop the experiment. This is in case if you are not getting the well-defined failure plane only. Well-defined failure plane only. So from this, so then measure the angle of failure plane from the horizontal, because when this is failure plane means, let me show you because you may get confused again. Yeah, see here. Suppose if you look at this graph, this picture, here you can see some kind of the cracks, some kind of a cracks. Not only single crack, but there are multiple cracks. But there is a one major crack in the diagonal direction. So in the diagonal direction. So this is called as a failure plane. This is called as a failure plane. Usually all the failure planes in case of the soil are in diagonal. So the angle made by this failure plane is 45 plus pi by 2. So this is what you read in your strength of materials or engineering mechanics. And this kind of the theory is not only valid for the soils, it is valid for all kinds of the materials, which are cement, steel, metal, concrete, so on and so forth. For all these materials, this kind of theory is valid. So this is one can able to measure how much is the failure plane, that is theta. So that is theta. So this is called as a failure plane. So measure the angle of failure plane from the horizontal. Then determine the moisture content of the soil sample. So the moisture content determination is required to calculate the dry density, not the bulk density. Now I know the geometry because I initially measured the length and diameter from the step 1. I calculate the bulk density. Bulk density. So from the bulk density based on the measurements of the step 1. 6. Step number 6, because for dry density we need the water content of that particular soil sample. So yeah, here also you can see the failure plane. So this is the failure plane. Clear? So the failure plane is origin always inclined in direction, preferably diagonal. Preferably diagonal. But diagonal failure normally happens when you apply either axial stress alone or axial and lateral stress together. So these are the some more pictures. So this is during the initial time and during the testing, and this is the final. So here you can see often we may see that instead of developing the failure plane, we can see bulge in the soil sample. As you can see, bulging at the top of the soil sample. So this is what I'm saying. In the previous slide I showed, you need to stop when you have seen a well-defined the failure plane or when you are reaching the 20% of the strain. That 20% we can clearly witness when there is a bulging in the soil sample. This bulging could be at the top of the soil sample or bottom of the soil sample. So here it is bulging. When there is a bulging, we can't able to see the development of the failure plane. Here you can see there is no shear failure plane in the inclined direction. So these are the stress strain graph, axial strain versus axial stress. Since I know the stress strain relationship, here the sample is failed approximately at this stage. Sample is failed here, sample is failed here. So this is the maximum stress at which the sample has failed. The sample has failed, which is nothing but your sigma 1 value. Which is nothing but your sigma 1 value. But what about the sigma 3? What about the sigma 3? The sigma 3 is 0 because there is no confinement. Since there is no confinement, sigma 3 is 0. Sigma 1 is obtained from the stress strain relationship. Now I know sigma 1, I know sigma 3. I can able to develop the Mohr circle diagram. Mohr circle diagram. So sigma 1, sigma 3. I can draw a Mohr circle. So this is the Mohr circle. I can draw only one Mohr circle for one sample. So you take the ordinate as you try to draw a tangent in the horizontal direction. Since the slope of this line is 0, therefore the pi is 0. And it is at a height of c from the bottom axis. The c is nothing but the cohesion. C is nothing but the cohesion. So the unconfined compressive strength is Qu, that is delta sigma. Delta sigma. So now hope it is clear to you all. Unconfined compressive strength is Cu. Sorry, unconfined compressive strength is Qu, that is delta sigma. That is delta sigma. Cohesion is the ordinate. The angle of internal friction is slope of the tangent line. So all three are independent. Once unconfined compressive strength is known, then from this I can able to determine the undrained shear strength, which is nothing but Su or Cu. Both are same. S and C both are same in case of the UCS. So SU is nothing but sigma U by 2. That is delta sigma by 2. Anything
Sir,
is okay.
why it is called undrained, sir?
Why it is called as undrained?
Yes.
Okay, undrained means see. This soil sample we have compacted at a particular moisture content. Okay, that means some amount of the water is there inside the soil sample. So during the testing, we won't allow the water to expel out from the soil sample. Draining means what? The water has to drain from the soil sample. If no water is draining from the soil sample, that is called as a undrained. Undrained.
Sir,
Is
then
it okay?
pore water pressure will be there.
Yeah, pore water pressure develops, but we won't measure it. Pore water pressure develops because you are not allowing na. But here we can say develops and no develops. So if you do not have any idea, yes, the pore water pressure develops. But you need to understand when the pore water pressure develops. The basic question is when the pore water pressure develops. Will it develop instantaneously or is it a time bound phenomenon?
Time bound.
Yeah, it is a time bound phenomenon. Very good. So development of the pore water pressure is a time bound phenomenon. Now here time bound means it develops over a period of 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, so on and so forth. But when you conduct any UCS test, we hardly require 5 minutes or 6 minutes. In 5 minutes, the test will be completed. So do you expect within 5 minutes, is there any development of the pore water pressure?
No, sir.
Yeah, so that is the reason there will not be development of the any pore water pressure. But still it is undrained. So you got the answer now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So is this part is clear now from this one? So So now these are the calculations. So this is, there is no spring constant or something. This here the calculations, although it has been shown spring constant, but this is related to the dial gauge. But nowadays we are no more using the dial gauge. Then we know the diameter of the specimen, cross sectional area, diameter, cross section, then calculate the maximum compressive stress at failure. So this is nothing but applied load divided by the cross sectional area. Then calculate the cohesion. Now let us have some kind of the demonstration of the calculation. So here an UCS test has been conducted in a soil sample. So the diameter of the specimen is 58 millimeter. Diameter is 58 millimeter. Length of the specimen is 116 millimeter. Initial cross-sectional area is 2642 millimeter square. Initial volume of the soil sample is 306. And mass of the soil sample recorded is 627.6. So I know the mass, I know the volume. I can able to calculate the bulk density, mass upon volume. So 2.05 gram per cc. Now, since I know how much amount of water has been added, so I have calculated or determined the water content. Now, once I know the water content, I can determine the density, the dry density, which is nothing but gamma divided by 1 plus water content. Gamma D is equals to gamma by 1 plus water content. So I can able to calculate the dry density. Now assume the specific gravity or determine the specific gravity value. Then I can able to determine the void ratio. How do you determine the void ratio here? Anybody can tell me the volume mass relationship to determine the void ratio?
So dry density is equals to G upon 1 plus E.
Correct. So dry density gamma D is equals to G into gamma W divided by 1 plus E. Gamma W is essential. G into gamma W divided by 1 plus E. So there I know the dry density, I know the water content, sorry, I know the specific gravity. So I can able to calculate the void ratio. Once void ratio is known, then I can able to calculate the degree of saturation. So what is the equation for degree of saturation?
Is equal to 0.
Wg is equal to SR into E. Wg is equal to SR into E. So in this case, herein the sample was saturated to only 42%. It's not fully saturated. So the test has been conducted at 42%. So it is up to you. We can saturate the sample up to 100%, or you can directly conduct the test at that particular saturation. Both things are welcome. Then the test was conducted by fixing the strain rate at 0.58 millimeter per
Sir, then
minute.
what difference in result we will get if we take 100% saturation and 50% saturation?
The basic fundamental is that for fully saturated clayey soil sample, the angle of internal friction is 0. For a fully saturated soil sample, the angle of internal friction is 0. That you may not be able to understand right now, because normally what happens is, suppose if the sample is fully saturated, this red line has to be perfectly horizontal. Perfectly horizontal. If it is not fully saturated, then this red line could be inclined. Red line could be inclined. But in those circumstances, we will get two parameters. One is the ordinate, next is pi value. Next is pi value. You got it now?
Yes.
But in case of the UCS, we can't able to do it that one because we are getting only one circle. Here there is only one circle, so we can't able to realize whether it is inclined or we simply fit only the horizontal line. That's it. Okay, so this is the data, and this is how we will get. First, what we will do is, so we will get the deformation. So as you are increasing as you are progressing the load or progressing the test, first you are increasing the deformation, initially zero deformation, and increasing the strain, As you are increasing the strain, correspondingly there is an increase in the load. So there is an increase in the load. However, the load may continuously increase, reach a peak, and then decrease. Now, since I know the initial length of the soil sample L0 and the delta L from this column, I can able to calculate the strain, that is E, that is defined as the delta L by L. Then, as I told you, as you are progressing the test, the cross-sectional area is not remain same. So therefore, we need to calculate the corrected area. How do you calculate the corrected area? Which can be done by dividing the initial area with 1 minus the strain rate. So A0 is initial cross-sectional area divided by 1 minus E. E is strain. So this column is strain. Now I can calculate the compressive stress at different stages, which is nothing but sigma is defined as applied load divided by the corrected area. Applied load, this is this column, and divided by the corrected area. So this is corrected area, and these are the compressive stresses. So now I know the stress, I know the strain. So here, where is the stress column and where is the strain column? So this is the stress column and this is the strain column. So I know x-axis, I know y-axis. Strain is in x-axis, stress is in y-axis. So therefore, I can able to develop stress-strain relationship between. So and that stress-strain looks like this: axial stress versus axial strain. So from this, I can interpret what is the maximum unconfined compressive strength. That is QU is equals to 2770 kilopascals. 2770 kilopascals. So then we can also develop some kind of the normal stress versus shear stress. Here you did not get any shear stress. Normal stress means the sigma 1 or sigma 3. Shear stress means the stress at failure. Here in this case, maybe in the next class, I will try to give you a demo on how to develop this shear stress versus normal stress. So then these are the results: unconfined compressive strength of the given soil, then undrained cohesion, which is nothing but so unconfined compressive strength divided by 2. So that's what all about UCS. This is very simple test, very simple. And these are some review questions or the conceptual questions, so to be answered by you all. So if you have any questions, you are most welcome to ask me.
Sir, why bulging takes place, sir, and when it takes place?
Bulging takes place because of several reasons. See, one of the reasons could be when you place the soil sample, if any kind of a tilt is there on the plunger side, this top plunger, if it is not properly placed, then there is a possibility of the bulging instead of the shearing. That is one thing. The second thing is most of the soil's virtue itself is a bulging. For example, if you take a little soft soil, they won't exhibit any kind of a defined failure plane. Rather, they simply undergo the volume change. So these are the two reasons. One is wrongly placement of the plunger either at the top or at the bottom. Bulging can take place even at the bottom also. Or sometimes it also can be attributed to preparation of the soil sample. If the soil sample is not uniformly compacted, then and there also there is a possibility of the bulging. Means maybe bottom it is compacted very well, top it is not compacted, or vice versa, whatever it is. but sometimes it also related to over consolidated soil, normally consolidated soil. In over
Sir,
consolidated soil,
can you tell second reason again?
second reason, this normally consolidated, over consolidated.
No, sir, that soil sometimes does not show any angle of failure.
I don't know. Okay. Uh, See, the first reason is wrong placement of a plunger. If there is any tilt in the plunger, then we may often get the bulging in the soil sample. So the second thing is if the soil is too soft. If the soil is too soft. So when the soil is bit soft, it won't undergo the shear failure. Rather, it undergoes the bulging. Bulging. And sometimes there are other kind of a clays. Those are called as a normally consolidated clay and over consolidated clay. Usually normally consolidated clays, they exhibit defined failure plane, but over consolidated clays, so they normally exhibit some kind of a bulging.
Okay.
Okay. Good, good. Yeah, many of the people are sleeping. Please wake up. So any questions?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, to find phi value, at which from which point do we need to draw the tangent?
Here in this case, it is not possible. Let me show you since you are asking. Yeah, for example, this is one circle. Suppose let me draw another circle. Say I have drawn another circle and I have drawn another circle. So I can draw a line which is touching the tangents of all the three circles, something like this. Something like this. So here I will get C value and the slope is nothing but pi value. So did you understand now?
Sir, for one experiment, we'll get only one more circle.
Correct, correct. So you will get one circle from one experiment. So that's why I'm saying in case of UCS test, you will get only one circle. So another important thing is that
Sir, then it
even
will
if
be always zero.
it will, yeah, in case of the UCS, it is always 0. Correct.
Okay.
You conduct 100 number of UCS tests, doesn't matter. So you will get only the pi is 0. Because in all the cases, the sigma 3 is 0, na?
Yes, sir.
So all the circles must pass through origin. There may be here and there small difference in the sigma 1 value, but all are horizontal lines only. So therefore, in UCS test, pi is always 0.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah, others please. Others please ask a question. So let me show the video of UCS test. Where is the YouTube video? So this is a video demo of unconfined compression test. So as I said, these are the accessories for preparing the soil sample. So this is a rammer for compaction purpose. And this is the UCS machine. So first take the soil sample, dry soil sample. So here first take some known weight of the soil sample. So in case of the UCS, the biggest thing is only how to prepare the soil sample. That's it. Once the soil sample is prepared, simply keep it in the UCS testing machine and apply the axial load. But that's it. So this is the mold. So since the sample will be compacted within the mold, it is better to apply some kind of a grease. So to the mold and to the top and bottom plunges. So you can see the mold is kept on top of the bottom plunger. Now try to add the desired amount of water which has been calculated based on the gamma D max and OMC. So once water is added to the soil sample, mix it thoroughly until you will get the homogeneous mixture. So mixing is one of the important steps. So you can see how neatly they are keeping. All add some amount of water, some amount of soil. So here the sample is compacted in 3 layers. So this is mini compactor. So he's scratching the top surface so that there is a perfect bonding between the bottom layer and subsequent. So now they have completed the compaction of 2 layers. So this is the third layer. So now the sample compaction is completed. So now try to scoop out the soil. So now remove the screws so that this can become a 2 halves. But when you are unscrewing, so you need to be very careful, because during the removal of the soil sample, there should not be any breakage. So if you are not properly, then there is a possibility of the soil sample breaking. So either you can do one thing, you can unmold it, or you can extract the soil sample. So this is here, they have extracted the soil core. Since the soil sample is compacted very well, it is easy to extract. So now put the soil sample in the UCS machine. As you can see, they are lowering the load frame. So this is called as a proving ring. So this circular thing is called as a proving ring. There are some dial gauges. So the dial gauges indicate a particular load. These dial gauges presents particular load. So now fix the LVDT or another dial gauge that can able to measure the deformation. So the top one is a proving ring, which gives the load value, while this yellow one will give you the deformation. So I know the load, I know the deformation. So set the deformation gauge to 0 and set the load gauge to 0. So now switch on the machine. It compresses the soil sample. So now again I repeat, when you try to apply the load, so it is only the strain that applies. You can see the strain is increasing and there is a corresponding increase in the load also. You have to keep noting down the deformation as well as the load. So you need to continue the application of a load till the soil sample fails. Yeah, see now. So the proving ring that indicates the load started reversing. So this indicates that the sample is already failed. Although deformation is increasing, but the load is getting decreased. You can see the failure plane. You can see the crack. So this is failure plane. See how beautifully the soil sample has failed in the diagonal direction. So this is called as a shear failure. So this is final failed sample. Now I know the stress strain diagram, dial gauge reading, then proving ring reading. So this is a displacement, and from the proving ring reading, the load is calculated. So based on this proving ring constant. So this chart is provided by the company. Then calculate the strain, then calculate the corrected area, then calculate the axial stress. So that's it. You will get a beautiful stress strain graph.
Sir, we have to take simultaneously the reading of dial gauge and proving gauge. Means how can we do that?
So you have to manage. At least two people should be there.
Sir, but we have to take at the same time. The means, sir, not means if second people late by some seconds, then we'll have different readings.
Correct. you need to manage. There is no other go. But anyhow, so this is the old setup. Earlier we used to take manual readings, but now, so you have all auto recorders are there, so we can able to take automatic readings of the stress and strain. There is no problem. In fact, they can give you the final UCS value, the final graph, final C value, final pi value, final QE value. Everything they will give you now. So nowadays softwares have been developed to so sophisticated level, you don't need to do anything.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so any other questions? So keep ask the questions. So if you are silent, then I am not knowing whether you are able to understand or not. At least respond. Okay, then if you don't have any question, then we can sign off here.
Yes, sir.